There, so. Alrighty, guys. So it looks like we're live. We have a couple of folks here joining us today. I can see, and so what we'll give folks a couple more minutes here to join us fairly shortly. I see Mark Stewart joining us as a guest. Mark, we're waiting for you here as a speaker. So if you've got your camera on, I think you joined us in the chat instead. So if you can rejoin, there should be an email in your inbox about how to do this. So, Mark, we're just gonna slowly but surely get started, and we'll wait for you to join us. So, alrighty, guys. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll welcome everybody, and welcome everybody who's attending, especially. So I had a chance to see a couple of other panelists and participate in these conversations. So great conversations. So hopefully you all had a chance to kind of jump in on these calls, and there's lots and lots of good stuff happening in these conversations. Starting from benevolence to startup community to Chattanooga's brand, which is exactly the part we're going to be kind of continuing as far as the discussion right now. So Chattanooga's brand, and specifically when it comes to the international community and involvement in it. So let's see. What I was thinking about is just really kind of plug my 2 cents here in the very beginning, and then get us all started with the intros, so we can kind of introduce ourselves. And I'm joined today by really fascinating people, super active in the community in Chattanooga, who have a lot to do with the international community here in Chattanooga, and also just my friends. I mean, I think I can call you all my friends, and so, but yeah. So anyway, welcome everybody. I wanted to start with this idea that Chattanooga has a brand, one. And stick with it for just 1 second. Chattanooga as a city, as any other city, has a brand in itself. And then COVID. And let's balance these two for a second. We can look at COVID as an downtime in the economy. Some folks are struggling. It's an opportunity for some. I have a chance to work with some of the folks, and I see some of these organizations that, for example, did live events. Yes, they are struggling. That industry doesn't exist anymore. Or traveling. But at the same time, there's a number of industries out there. They're just unstoppable from what it seems like. And they have had opportunities that they have never had before. And so Chattanooga has a brand, and that we're living through these really interesting times where economy is not up and economy is not down. And all of a sudden we're presented with a lot of choices, a lot of opportunities. So let's just kind of balance these two thoughts as we kind of jump into this conversation. So what I'm going to let you guys do, let's go ahead and start with the intros. And just tell us your name, what is it that you do, and maybe how that has to do with anything that has international component here in Chattanooga. So let's go ahead and start with Alex.
Awesome. Thank you for being the moderator, Anton, for this panel. Topic near and dear to my heart. My name is Alex Lavage. I am the founder and CEO for Startup Champs. We are a pre-launch growth consultancy with clients worldwide, mostly high net worth individuals to large companies, even a Fortune 1000, essentially helping them get sales before launching new companies, or in other cases, another revenue stream under their corporate umbrella.
Mm-hmm. Okay, perfect. Sounds good. Frank, you want to go next?
I'm Frank Fenner with IMSA, International Maritime Security Associates. We deal in the maritime space. We've developed technology for ships that are traveling around the world, both in the cybersecurity side of things, edge of network monitoring, as well as providing critical information as ships are moving in and through the world. The oceans is sort of an untouched area. We live here in Chattanooga, and as some of the other speakers have spoke on different panels, there's connectivity nationwide into the gigabit technology or gigabit bandwidth, but the ocean is still working at much slower speeds. So we provide that for them. We've been in existence since 2013. Me and my co-founder, Corey Ranslam, he's at our office down in Florida. We started our company in Florida, and because of the things that Chattanooga had to offer to us to set up our operational facility that's here now, because we didn't need to be close to water, but we needed to have a redundancy in a couple of different things. Internet being one of them, and also power. So when we were looking at cities to go to, we've seen that some of the advantages were the startup community that was here in Chattanooga. We were unaware at the time. It'll be 5 years on April 15th, tax day. And so we've been, fortunate to be here. Knowing Alex, knowing Lulu, knowing yourself has been a key advantage for us as a community too, and just seeing some of those things that are happening here in Chattanooga, and thank you for allowing me to be a part of this.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, awesome. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. Let's see, we have Mark joining us here. So Mark, can you hear us?
I can. I apologize, guys. I signed in under I was sent two different invitations, and I guess I signed in on the wrong one. So
That's right. So do you want to go next? Just kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about what you do.
Sure. I'm Mark Stewart. My day job is to work with Bank of America. I'm a commercial banker, and I have been a commercial banker for several decades now. It's kind of strange to say that. I work with a portfolio of companies that do work that they sell internationally, they purchase internationally. I also have companies that are headquartered in other countries and have operations here. I have some companies who are trying to do work and have subsidiaries in other countries. So from that perspective, I sit in a different kind of space than a lot of people, because I see how people operate their businesses on a day-to-day basis, but I also get to have the opportunity to see them work from how they handle their capital, how they handle their debt, how they handle their personnel, how they handle when you have to change your world and go to work from home. In my company, 185,000 of us were sent home on March 16th. And somehow or another that plan worked, and we are still able to do that. I also, my other part of my world, the reason I'm here today is I'm the president-elect of the International Business Council for the Chamber of Commerce, and I served with Anton and with Lulu on that board and have for the past few years.
Mm-hmm. All righty. Well, thank you, Mark. Appreciate it. And Lulu, since we mentioned you want to go next?
Hi, my name is Lulu Copeland. I'm going to claim that I'm just a hat collector due to my chronic habits of trying to stay busy. My background is engineering, so I'm pretty active in the engineering community here in Chattanooga. So coordinated a lot of programming with Chattanooga Engineers Club. So Frank mentioned earlier, well, maybe that's before everybody joined us. He was a speaker. I tried to pull in all the friends I know for the different hats I wear. So we actually did start virtual meetings, the Engineers Club, since March, and actually that's been going quite well. Another hat I wear is I'm the state lead of Men and Women Mentors. That's a nonprofit trying to encourage girls to pursue engineering as a career choice. So my official title that I'm logging in as is the executive director of Tennessee China Network. My family immigrated here to U.S. and we ended up in Chattanooga. So it was my parents' choice that we ended up in Chattanooga, but I stayed, they left. So with that, I have the background of being a Chinese, so engaged in Chattanooga Chinese Association from way back then. A year ago, I retired from Chattanooga State. So had 20 years of economic and workforce development projects, and that included the well-known recruitment of Volkswagen, and then subsequently a lot of the suppliers, and then also, of course, Walker Chemical in Cleveland, Athens, Tennessee, and some of the international companies. And that got me involved with the International Business Council. So basically, like I said, I'm still trying to collect one more hat.
That's right. Well, sounds good. Thank you, Lulu. Appreciate it. And so I know, Lulu's not from Chattanooga originally, right? Frank is not. I know Frank is from Michigan originally, then Florida, then Chattanooga, right? Alex and Mark, are you locally, like, are you locals? Are you from Chattanooga? Alex is not. Where are you from, Alex?
I moved here in 2013. Knoxville was my hometown, but I've also lived all over the world. I've lived in London, Oregon, Iowa, San Francisco Bay Area, which is really what sort of kicked off my passion for the importance of building international communities and then bringing that back home.
Yeah. Awesome. Mark?
I grew up in Alabama. I left when I was 21 years of age to move to Miami, or as my uncle Carl referred to it as Miami, and spent 12 years in South Florida. And we moved here about 25 years ago once we started having children.
Okay, awesome. Well, it looks like there's a bunch of non-Chattanoogans here on the call, all excited about Chattanooga. And so we'll probably, my next question will be kind of about that, like we'll get you excited and all. But before we jump into this, so just a couple of things I wanted to touch base on that I think we cannot miss in today's world and in today's information kind of flow that we're all consuming. So, again, speaking about COVID as an opportunity, right? We all learned that there's massive shifts when it comes to migration, internal migration in the U.S. We know that California has one of the problems is there's this massive exodus that's happening, and so lots and lots of people are just leaving California. I think in the past year alone, there's been 135,000 people that left the state for other places, and question becomes, of course, we hear about New York, Manhattan being just kind of almost like a ghost town for the high rises and all. It's a beautiful place to live, and if you live in New York, please do. So we're not encouraging you to do this, but we know that large cities where things are a little more expensive, now that we're bound to homes, we're based out of homes, primarily for our work purposes. Now other states, other cities have opportunities, right? And so where do all these people from California move into, right? And so what we hear in the news is Austin, Texas, right? Somehow that's kind of making the news is somehow Austin, Texas lifestyle and cost and things like that are very similar to it. But according to U-Haul statistics, so U-Haul, what they do is they grab this annual data of trucks that are being rented at a certain state and then brought into a certain state one way. So a big van is being dropped off in a certain state. And so very clearly that signifies somebody moving into the state, right? So number one state out of all 50 that people move into is Tennessee. So just think about it. Not Texas, but Tennessee. So that's a huge opportunity, I think, for our state specifically. Well, and number two piece of information I think is very important is by PC Mag, Chattanooga has been named as number one city to work from home all over the states. So from all the cities in the U.S. So, what am I missing? Are we being presented by a huge opportunity? And the question becomes, how does Chattanooga and Chattanooga's brand can capture that? Can not even monetize, but can capture some of that dynamics and all. So, the question is to all of you guys, and we can start with Lulu this time, kind of going backwards. Tell us a little bit more about your involvement in the international community here in Chattanooga. When it comes to international community, the way we define it, let's just also kind of clarify this. It's foreign companies doing business in Chattanooga, right? So foreign company coming into our city, as well as domestic organization doing business overseas, be it a service or a product, anything like this. So, Lulu, tell us a little bit more about your involvement in international community of Chattanooga.
Well, I mentioned earlier, my family immigrated here in the 70s, and I still remember going to the Chattanooga Chinese Association potluck dinner and Chinese New Year. Happy New Year, everybody. Happy Ox Year. Way back then. Fast forward to when I started working at Chattanooga State in the 90s, and as a Tiger mom, my son's word, not mine, I forced him to attend Chinese school on Sunday afternoons. I was able to convince the college to be the host of the Chinese school since then. So the school has been operating at Chattanooga State classrooms for 20 plus years now. So because of the COVID, actually, the school right now is online. And then I also mentioned my role at Chattanooga State was creating and implementing workforce training projects. We collaborated with La Paz and deliver many ESL classes. recently, City of Chattanooga funded 3 ESL classes for several years through my involvement with Chattanooga Girls Leadership Academy, which has a very large Hispanic and other immigrant student population. We did evening classes there, trying to attract some of the parents. But we also work with a lot of immigration lawyers and also other international associations to attract people to attend those free classes. So we mentioned serving companies. So I did a German class for Rotec when a group of managers were working on a German project. We did a Japanese class for a church when they were about to head to mission work. Some of the projects that got a lot of attention that I also mentioned was Volkswagen Bacher. And so right before I left Chattanooga State was our recruitment of No Kin Tires to Dayton, Tennessee. So with this role with Tennessee China Network, I've been supporting Tennessee people and companies with Chinese ties that had expanded into actually some Dalton companies. Recently, several Chinese companies set up shop in Dalton, and those companies have needs of skilled professionals with Chinese language capabilities. I actually have got to know a lot of great non-Chinese professionals that speaks really good Chinese, better than mine, since I don't practice it every day. So that has been, all of these projects has been really great. I love helping people, companies, and our community grow.
Well, I hear a common thread in what you're saying. You talk a lot about workforce development, and you talk about languages. Is that by choice? Is that how you got into these things, or why those two components?
Well, it wasn't a conscious choice. Actually, working at Chattanooga State was a mommy track. I thought it was going to be 2 years until my son was older. But I did like helping people grow. I wasn't that aware of what community colleges provide until I started working there. And my first project was training production workers at DuPont. A lot of them don't have college education, but by Chattanooga State going there to train those people, we help a lot of people obtain credentials and actually elevate their earning. So it was very satisfying. So
how important is it for all these organizations that are coming into Chattanooga doing business here in the city? How important is it to have this trained workforce? And is that the reason why you have been kind of part of this initiative?
Well, it's not easy to recruit talents, and then it's not easy to retain talents. And provide training is actually a benefit that a lot of time companies don't mention or promote or market. I do think it's good for morale for companies to invest in their people. People stay with the companies not because of 20-cent raises or $20 raises. They feel like the company cared for them when you invest in them. So.
Okay, I've been part of these conversations, and I guess what I'm trying to kind of get into with this whole workforce issue is that there are major, and I don't want to, I guess, call their names. And Lulu, if you have the liberty to kind of say that, I know of some major companies that brought a bunch of jobs here to Chattanooga. They have been struggling with developing getting the workforce that they were looking for, and so that's been a big conversation just really a couple of years ago, and so I wonder if it's still the issue, if it's still happening, if you still hear these conversations or not.
I think so. A lot of manufacturing companies, what they need are production workers. As the as a mom myself, we probably all want our kids to go as high as they can go, and we do want to promote that. But people, when they finish high school, have to start somewhere, and constructing those building blocks. And so from high school to community college to four-year institutions, those are the blocks that the community has to put in for our local companies as well as international companies. Once they invest the amount of money that they invest for the new place, their new home.
Yeah. Makes sense.
Up and go. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, sounds good, Lulu. Yeah. Appreciate it. So Frank, let's move on to you real quick. So tell us a little bit more about your organization. And also, a question kind of to you specifically is, do you think Chattanooga is positioned to be, to have a great potential when it comes to international trade?
Positioned, I'm not sure as far as positioned, but we have as a company, our software that we develop is software as a service. It's a SaaS system, so it's an exported good going to an international community because this rests on the bridge of ships, and the majority of ships are internationally owned. So 90% of our client base is international. I don't think it's necessarily positioned that way, but we have had conversations with Department of Commerce here out of Knoxville and then back over into Washington, D.C., representatives that way, because we know it needs to grow in that direction. When we chose Chattanooga to come to, there was other existing factors that we looked at. What does Chattanooga have to offer outside of just the infrastructure that was existing, that was built 15, 20 years ago. But I used to come to Chattanooga many years ago as a young boy, and Chattanooga wasn't the nicest city in the world. It wasn't the cleanest place to live. But today it's like you walk downtown and it's gorgeous. Even on a semi-cloudy day and everything like that, you'll still see people at the walking bridge. And I was listening to Alex's discussion a little bit earlier, and you think about how do you rebrand Chattanooga, and he was asking that question is like, I don't know, I just have, and you're the marketing guy, mind you, but I have this thing, because you wear so many hats in the entrepreneurial world of pictures of the outdoors of Chattanooga and different things that it has to offer, but also all these cool businesses that are popping up here. And where does that get marketed to an international world? To say, we've always looked at it, Corey and I have looked at how do we bring other maritime companies to set up office here, because outside of that, there's a logistical hub that exists here with, U.S. Express, Covenant, and so many other LD3 carriers that are here based in Chattanooga that I've had conversations with, and it can literally be a hub of goods and services moving around the world and providing this information to people that are the Volkswagens of the world. Hey, they have, from conversations I've had, they have 72 hours of things on property to build out cars. How does that continual logistical movement of everything that's needed to assemble cars stay in play? Some of it comes from overseas, some of it comes from here locally. People are storing it at warehouses, wherever that may be. And I would say you draw a 75-mile radius around this area and those types of things. Now we have also down by Dalton, just a little bit southeast of Dalton, we have an international trade center there that all these goods that come in through Savannah and that area are brought up there and then logistically distributed here locally. How does that connect with the things that are going out of the port of Hong Kong? How does that end up out of Hamburg? Those different places around the world, out of London, out of India, out of Indonesia, those types of things. How do we connect this? And for us doing business, we deal, you talk about COVID. COVID has been blessing curse in some ways, to where you used to go to fly to see people. Now you're actually having more and a little bit more successful meetings because people can jump on whenever. Why is Chattanooga the place for people working from home? Because the connectivity is so good. Yes, I know that there's gigabit service in other parts of the country, but I'll tell you, the infrastructure that it takes to run gigabit service, they don't have that yet. We have gigabit service down in South Florida. The cost of that versus the cost of here, it's not even comparable. So yeah, some things might be a little bit overpriced right now in Chattanooga, but there's some other things that I've heard Alex talk about, and the fact of, hey, how do we grow another 1,000 millionaires here in Chattanooga? And how does that influence people coming here and building, not just generational wealth? I don't want to say it that way because it's not but it's like a fertile ground. I'll just say it that way, fertile ground. And it's like, some of us have the opportunity, and I grew up in Michigan, and you go around there and you see all these farmlands and you see these field stones that were taken out of these fields to make it so it's able to plant. I think we have the opportunity to clear some of those stones out of here and giving back. And like Lulu says, she's been involved in the giving back into the community. And that's what the other part that I love about Chattanooga too, is I have a part, of being going through CoLab, but also being a part of co-starters and being a facilitator for people that are trying to start up business, and understanding that not everyone is a unicorn, but maybe you can be doing $5-10 million worth of business, or maybe you're doing 500,000, and all of that's okay. All of that is needed. All people that are working in the factory lines are needed. People that work in skilled trades are needed. People that are writing program are needed, and valuing the individual and providing a workspace and pouring back into it. My stewardship as the COO is making sure for what we have allocated financially is everyone has the best tools available to them as where we are as a company today. So that's that stewardship that I have personally of the people that work here. And then how do I go beyond that? Hey, we give back to the community. One of the sayings I heard back in 2015 was a rising tide raises all the ships. And here I am, a guy that was prior Navy, works in the maritime industry, and for some reason I never heard that saying before. And it's just really cool. It's Chattanooga is a unique place, and there's a lot of things that need to change in Chattanooga, but a lot of things have changed. So let's not forget the things that have happened. Let's continue to champion it on. Let's continue to champion on the female entrepreneurs, the minority entrepreneurs that are out there, and come alongside each other and say, I want to see, to me, one of my heroes in this town is Felicia Jackson, CPR reps, and just to see her tenacity of never giving up. She's a fighter through and through, and she's one of my heroes. She's like one of the people that I'm like, I just need to get up and put my boots on that day because that's who she is. And that's what this community is. It's not a perfect community or anything like that, but we're all imperfect people. And when we realize that we're imperfect, but we strive to be better, hey, there's times I have to say sorry, and that's okay. That's what makes us better as a community. That gives us better opportunities for people to come here And, we planted our flag, like I said, back in 2015. We started a company in 2013, and we've gotten tremendous support here. And our client base is international, and people will ask us why. And we tell our story. And I guess that's how we champion Chattanooga. We tell our story.
This is amazing, Frank. Yeah. So I hear two common threads of what you're talking about. You're talking about common idea, right? That we're all kind of have to be grouped around in the community. And I 100% agree with you. I think it does take this common core for us to kind of figure out who we are and things like that. And then for each one of us really chip in. And that's how we turn maybe our city into something that's a bit more dynamic and positioned better for a future and all. I hear also that being positioned and having a potential, those are two totally different things, right? And so I appreciate that as well. So, Alex, everybody keeps mentioning your name here, and so tell us a little bit more about. Which, by the way, I need to say that Alex has been kind of the brains behind this discussion, and so he's really excited about the international community here in Chattanooga. And so, okay, so tell us why, Alex. One, why you're excited about the international community? Not necessarily being an international person, what gets you so excited? And also about your current involvement in the international community of Chattanooga.
Sure. Well, this is a team effort first and foremost. So, again, thank you for moderating, Anton. So I would say three quick things. One is dating way back into the day. I think it was about 2001. I met a very famous researcher and author named Richard Florida, who wrote a book called Rise of the Creative Class, which back in the day was a bestseller for how we can position cities to embrace the creative class and become creative economies. And to summarize, he said it came down to three things: talent, technology, and tolerance. And that tolerance is often a piece that a lot of communities miss. Because if you look at some of the top innovation hubs across America, they are dense metrocultural meccas and havens where even if people don't necessarily get each other, they respect each other, they collaborate with each other, and they help each other lift up for the betterment of the community. And that's really, really important. And since seeing that research, I've lived in San Francisco. I've spent time in places like London and New York City as well. And I've seen how that can benefit not just a cross collaboration of ideas, but also for me personally. Like I said, I have a lot of clients that are international. Back in 2019, I traveled across 6 continents, talking to different clients, doing speaking engagements, and came to realize that another piece of this, which I think is really important, is not just for the workforce development piece, where, the more we can position Chattanooga to say, hey, this is a place where no matter who you are or where you're coming from, you are welcome. And that's a way we can start to fix this tech skills and work gap that we have in our community, is to continue to push that message out there, and for not to just to be a message, but for it to be real. So that's first and foremost, because I don't want to sidetrack too much, but I've got a list of stories of people that have come here from Vietnam to Iran to India to China to you name it. They all have mixed experiences. Some have said Chattanooga is a welcoming community. Others have not felt welcome. We need to be honest about that. And we need to have those real conversations to figure out what are the things we can do to make sure that everyone feels welcome. But the second piece is that, for instance, last year, I started making my first international investments. I now have investments over in Indonesia. I'm exploring other countries as well. I've come to realize as an entrepreneur myself and also as an investor that there are tremendous opportunities internationally for us to develop win-win strategic partners with our foreign business people and entrepreneurs around the world. And oftentimes in Chattanooga, there can be, I won't say it's prevalent, but there is a mentality of some entrepreneurs that feel like there's only so much in the pie, right? Like there's only so much opportunity here. When the reality is that, especially now with the web, we've got another, 3 billion people accessing the web over the next 5 years. Everyone's starting to come online. the world keeps getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And so the more we can celebrate, this is not only a place where people can come, but this is also a community that wants to look outward and say, let's not just focus what's happening in Chattanooga, what's happening around the world. You know, I'll be the first one to say my father was a former FCC commissioner, and we have this conversation all the time. There's a lot of bias in a lot of American media to focus on just American news in some cases, not all, as opposed to what's really happening internationally. But there is so much international and diverse representation here in the Chattanooga that I often hear the stories of what's happening in different countries through those conversations. And in those conversations, I'm also recognizing, hey, we have capital and talent here in Chattanooga. Could we explore ways to build relationships and then find ways to not only export what we have to other countries, which then in turn helps boost Chattanooga up, because that means we're bringing in fresh capital from not only outside of the region, but outside of the U.S. But then also, what are ways that we can give back to our foreign neighbors and friends as well to help them grow their economies as we're growing ours as well.
Mm. You know, it's really interesting. You mentioned this concept of mixed experiences. Let's kind of ponder on that for a second and think like why is that the case? Why some people come in and say, "Well, this Chattanooga is one of the most wonderful places to be in." Like Frank, you know, like me. I'll be honest with you guys as well. I feel tremendous community support. I've met so many wonderful people, including all of you. But some people don't. Let's kind of think about it. Why is that the case? As we kind of move into our second part of this discussion here, into some more practical pieces. And so that's where I want to come to Mark. As the president-elect of IBC, International Business Council, Mark, what gets you excited about the international business community, as well as is there anything that IBC currently, maybe Chamber in general, does, or any sort of programs, initiatives that they have in place, where we kind of try to facilitate some of that?
You're muted, Mark.
Yeah.
There you go. Oop.
There you go.
Well, you know, I've hit it and I hit it again. Thank you, Anton. And Lulu, I was going to say, you were talking about being a mom. I'm a dad. As a parent, you have this concept of you want to make sure your community is one of opportunity, where your children will stay here in the community, because selfishly, we want to have our kids around us at some point. I grew up, I graduated from college. I left the state of Alabama at the age of 21, and I've never gone back except to visit and the occasional funeral. It's a different world. So what we really want to have is an ability for people to thrive. I've heard education talked about today. I've sat in on several of the sessions today, and Alex, thank you for arranging these. And there's been a common theme, and the common theme is basically people want to be able to thrive, they want to live well and do well. In order to live well and do well, you have to have a community that educates its own well. You have to have a business climate that draws people. One of the reasons I believe so many people are heading in their U-Hauls toward the state of Tennessee is our tax structure. We are also a strange state in the fact that we actually have a surplus on occasion, and it's an amazing thing. And there's a lot of reasons for that. But one of the reasons for that is we have opportunity. That opportunity is from a number of different ways. Our opportunity is for people who grow their own business through entrepreneurship. It's also from outside companies wanting to move here. Lulu talked earlier about Volkswagen. I remember sitting at the country club when the announcement was made, watching that on television with my children. We were coming in from a round of golf, watching something on a Monday afternoon, and wow, what a phenomenal thing to happen to realize Volkswagen was coming here. And then all the other companies that come through here. So what makes me excited, Anton, is an opportunity to help those companies thrive. It's the smaller companies wanting to grow. It's also the larger companies wanting to come here and pay our people wages that allow them to live a lifestyle that we would want to emulate. So a couple of things the IBC, the International Business Council, is working to foster this year. When we pivoted and went to from COVID and had to go to virtual and everything, we had to really narrow our focus. And we have two things we're working on primarily. One of them is publishing an international resource guide. This international resource guide is a place where people can come and look and get ideas about other people who do business internationally, other international companies that are here. I think a lot of people don't realize the breadth of companies that came with Volkswagen. Volkswagen is not nearly as big as Wacker. They don't realize what's out there and what opportunities are there. Doing business internationally is a little more complex than it is. Your financing is different. International accounts receivable are not acceptable as working capital lines of credit, just are not. So life's a little different. But one of the other items you talked about was people being welcoming. And one of the conversations we have, the IBC has 9 members of the board of directors, of which I'm in the minority, and that I am primarily a U.S. citizen from birth and a speaker of only English. Everybody else on the IBC, they could be speaking in another language, and I would have no clue. But what I found out as we had this conversation, and I also found out with my own businesses that I have seen that I work with, when they're bringing their executives to the U.S., because of the laws that are about working in the U.S., when someone comes to work here and their spouse that comes along with them has a different type of visa, they're limited in what they can do. Mm-hmm. We also find out that we need to have, there's that old joke about happy wife is a happy life. Well, happy husband is a happy life as well. And I've had a couple of companies who have brought their upper level management to the U.S. and it didn't work out. The spouses were extraordinarily miserable. They were miserable because they couldn't work when they came here. They didn't understand the school systems. They didn't understand why teachers touch their children. You don't do that apparently in Europe, but they do here. A lot of hugging going on. And so we found out that there are issues that we need to look at to help these business people. And that's what we're calling the accompanying, it's a hard word to say, spouse program, where we're looking for ways to help people moving into this country and helping them more than just figuring out how to open a checking account, more than just figuring out how to get a business license, how to learn more about the cultural perspective. So that's more exciting to me. And I've also seen it within my own businesses, my own circles, of seeing people that they loved the job, they loved the community, but they couldn't stay, and they did not. But I also want this opportunity for this foreign investment in our country, in our county, because I see what kind of jobs it brings. And I have friends of mine who have children who are working in these international companies and are excited about it.
Yeah, I really appreciate, Mark, that perspective. So we don't think about some of these things, right? Especially the accompanying spouse. Like, it doesn't even cross your mind until you start actually looking into situations and why do some of these executives leave and things like that. So it's definitely, the more heads, the more kind of hands in this pot, the better it is, because we're all bring different perspectives and things like that. So let's move into this second part of our conversation, to where and I get a feeling we're just going to open up this box today, really, as to what is it that we can do in order to turn that potential into positioning, into us becoming more able and more aware. So Alex, we'll go to you, but before we do this, I just want to say, if you guys have any sort of questions, put it in the comments, send it to us, and I'll make sure to kind of plug it in our conversation here. So Alex, it's all yours.
Thank you. So we've talked about this a little bit before, and I know you and I have talked about it. The other three of you, we have not. So as which case would be interested in your thoughts. But when I was traveling across 6 continents in 2019, in addition to working with my clients and doing speaking engagements, I also made an effort to visit other innovation districts around the world and to learn about what they were doing, what was working and what wasn't. And I say this lovingly without criticism. in that our innovation district was spearheaded by so many local leaders whom I love and respect, who have poured their heart and soul into that effort. But let's be real for a second. We still have a long way to go to take that innovation district so that it can reach the potential that it deserves. So the question is, how do we do that? And one of the ideas that's been floating around is to layer on top of it, or to complement it, something called an international district. And this would be a symbol that all of the cultures here in Chattanooga, I mean, as I'm sure you all know, we have one of the fastest Hispanic Latino communities growing in the United States, right here in Chattanooga. And to your point, Anton, you're absolutely right. These people that are in this mass exodus from California to New York, Illinois is number 3. They're all looking for places to go where, again, from a branding perspective, they feel welcome, where they can bring their capital, their talent, their businesses, and the relationships and perspectives that they have. So to have an international district potentially be a part of the downtown Chattanooga landscape, I think could be a tremendous advantage, where what I like about it is that it's not just meeting one goal or 2 goals, but ultimately multiple goals, because it would be attracting talent. It would be attracting investment capital. It would be increasing real estate values, which was one of the main reasons why the innovation district, not the only reason, but one of the main reasons why it was pushed for, was because there's a lot of empty space in downtown commercial real estate that we want to fill to increase those property values, and a whole list of other reasons why, especially now, before anyone else has done it, Chattanooga could position itself as to say, hey, not just we're a Me Too innovation hub, but we're truly leading the pack. And we're saying, rather than go to places that are expensive like New York or San Francisco, other international / innovation hubs, you can come to a mid-sized city like Chattanooga, where we welcome and celebrate diversity and multiculturalism, because we truly are a community of good-hearted people that want to be good neighbors to not just our neighbors in our own backyard, but to countries around the world as well.
When you talk about it, I hear 2 things. I hear a brand, right? So from a branding perspective, that's quite helpful to have Chattanooga being positioned as we are that hub, we are welcoming, we are inclusive. But also, I think you're talking about a platform. I think you're referring to something that can not just be a great packaging for Chattanooga, but to have something that's inside of it that's really vibrant and maybe culture changing in a sense. And so
it needs to be tested. There need to be more people at the table. This is an example. This is why we're doing this forum. It's because these are the types of conversations where a lot of people feel out of the loop. So the question is, how do we get more people to be a part of the loop of conversations like this, with the idea of let's as a community come together to say we feel like this is the right path forward, not just for a few, but for all of us. I'll add to that real fast. My hometown in Knoxville, and I say this lovingly, and I'm allowed to say it because I'm a 3rd-generation Knoxvillian, we're still bragging about the 1982 World's Fair. Even though it's 39 years later, we're still talking about it. We haven't forgotten that. If you haven't heard, we hosted the 1982 World's Fair in Knoxville. But I'll say this, boy, did that put Knoxville on the map. And the economic development benefits that came from that, again, in the early 80s were quite significant. And nothing really has been quite repeated like that in terms of a city of its size in the Southeast. So there is an opening and there is an opportunity. The question is that the type of opportunity that's right for Chattanooga? And if so, too, can we mobilize as a community to get support behind such a bold idea so that we're not just following suit, but we're actually leading the way as the innovative city that we are?
Yeah, I really appreciate it. So major events, anything that puts Chattanooga on the map, I think, yeah, definitely that's super beneficial. Frank, you are this extremely positive guy. Since the first day I've met you, you're just positive. You just love Chattanooga. You just love things. You love people and things like that. But so tell us a little bit more, like your thoughts in terms of what can we do better in Chattanooga?
I think we need to be the change in Chattanooga. To Alex's point, people do come here and some people don't feel welcome. I don't want to go to the point to where we need to make sure everyone feels welcome, because Chattanooga might not be the place for every person, because some people want the big city, some people want the mid-tier city, those types of things. But we need to make it to a place to where, hey, they can at least experience Chattanooga and make that decision, making an intelligent decision, not one that's from biased or anything like that. They just say, hey, it just wasn't a fit for me, or man, I'm glad I get to call this place home. I come from, as you said, Michigan originally, born and raised to 18th year of age, and then left there, went into the military, traveled around the world, seeing different cultures, and then continued that wandering spirit, I would say, since those times, being over to Asia, being over to Europe and South America and so on and so forth. Living in the Fort Lauderdale, Miami area, it's a melting pot there. It's a cultural melting pot, and you have people from all over the world. Coming here was culture shock for me. My circle of friends in South Florida, it didn't matter your walk of life or where you came from or anything like that. Everyone was friends. Here, there was that little bit of the South that was still here. But I don't want to shame the South for being the South. But can I be you sit there and say I'm a positive person? Well, I can be that agent of change. We need to not cast blame, but be the person that can maybe shine a light in a different way that someone's never seen before. And there's systemic type things that exist, but let me not sit there and just point at it without doing something about it. So whether you're from, Asia, whether you're from South America, whether I can habla español or say hello in Thai, Swati Kap, Kapkun Kap, all these different things. I speak a little bit of a lot, can I speak some Ukrainian? Can I speak a little bit of this or that? But I always can smile at someone. I always can shake someone's hand. And I always, at least now being here for a little bit, I can say, hey, I can point you in someone that knows. I think it's awesome to hear about, because I've never thought about it. I'm a single guy, building a business. I don't think about the spouse and the kids and all these other nuances that come into play. And there's a lot of private schools around here, but there's a lot of cool schools here that we've gotten to work with, like STEM schools. We've done some things with them, and seeing how education is changing and shifting. Lulu over at this, Chattanooga State, and seeing certificate programs and how valuable they are for us as a company. And then attracting that international thing, having those partners worldwide, and that's what we have. We have people that we work with out of London. We have people we work with out of Asia and Singapore, in that area especially. So there's some of those ties. Right now we're not able to travel as much and bring those people here, but eventually it will happen. So let's lay the foundation. Let's continue to be a part of it. Let's continue to not just have conversation, but now I always look to sit there and say, let's not make a knee-jerk decision, but let's make a plan. Let's make a plan we're gonna see solid implemented change 35 years from now. When I'm gone from here, can people look back and go, wow, Chattanooga was once this? And I'm not wanting to make Chattanooga something that it's not. I'm not wanting to make it California. I'm not wanting to make it Austin, Texas. I'm wanting Chattanooga to still keep its identity into itself, but be a place to where everyone could sit there and go, man, I'm proud to live in this place. So those are the things that I think about as a business owner, as just a human being too, is how do we care for one another? And that, I know this is the branding of international business, but caring for that spouse that's coming in here, and you have the kids and they don't speak the language, where do they go? How do we still make them feel involved? We have the Thanksgiving dinner that's on Martin Luther King Boulevard, and it's just a table that's stretched out, and it's almost like draw a number out of the hat, and all the people there have a one, or you're sitting at this table, and it could, it could be as simple as that.
So it's interesting how we're talking about some tangibles, but also some of these things that are kind of hard to touch and feel. I mean, something what you were saying. I mean, it's like, sure, it's important, but hold on. That could make a big difference between company doing business here in Chattanooga and company doing business back in Paris, because it's my hometown and it's internet company. I don't care where to start it. So might as well start and benefit Paris economy versus Chattanooga. So this is huge. I really appreciate what you're saying. Lulu, any thoughts? We have just a couple of minutes left here. Any thoughts on any sort of areas for improvement for Chattanooga international community?
Well, you only have a few minutes.
We'll get started.
Some of the things that, companies come here because TVA and EPB have provided the gig, but then it started out with the stable utility that we have. Wacker needs that water. DuPont needed constant electricity to produce whatever, you can't shut down chemical companies. So those are the type of things that we want to make sure people know how good we have it here. But more than that, we talk about location. Chattanooga boomed because, of course, it's probably a negative to some people. We're at the intersection of I-24 and I-75. That's a great location for logistics. And our natural resources, you don't get to have that not every city can have what we have here. I got the river right outside. We got so those are the type of things that really is our brand. And so the man-made resources and the natural resources makes Chattanooga, a pretty awesome place. Now we got improvements. I've been in U.S. for 40 plus years. I still miss a good Chinatown food. There's no such thing in Chattanooga. I can't even talk Atlanta dim sum restaurants to come here. So those are the type of things that my parents left because there was no real Chinese restaurant in Chattanooga in the 70s. And there's still no Chinese restaurant owner in the audience. There's still not real Chinese restaurant. Sorry. So those are the type of things that some professional look for when they pick a job. They did.
It's interesting. We have Jay in the comments here talking about the infrastructure component. Is it important or is it not? I don't think that's much of a question. I think it is important. I think it is important to kind of develop our infrastructure. But I really appreciate the conversation that we're having here. Is we are putting a human being at the center. We're saying the biggest value in this whole thing is a human being, and the thing is, having some of these intangibles, some of these. Great food. And all of a sudden, again, that could make it or break it. Because I remember a conversation that, where some of these Germans executives came in and they said, listen, we were between Alabama and here. And they looked at stood at the bridge at the museum and they said, this is a pretty cool place. It has some good food and it has a nice view. It has a river. Yeah, let's do it here kind of thing. Like, sure, it may not have been that huge of a factor in there, but it's a factor. It's I love our conversation, and I love the fact that we're talking about a human being at the core of it all. And so I think if we start there, I think that's a winning direction versus talking about infrastructure, which, Jay, I'm not trying to downplay this. I think it's important. I think infrastructure follows some of these things. I think it's a step 2, maybe step 3, because now we need some solid structures around all these soft kind of material that we have to turn into something tangible. But I think human being is at the core of it, and I think you're right on the spot here. So, guys, the point of this conversation here, this discussion, was not to exhaust the subject. This matter is huge, and it's ever evolving. That conversation can live as long as Chattanooga lives. And so I appreciate your all time. We are just starting. Basically, we're creating a platform. Alex, can I say that? Alex being a brain behind it, and the kind of person who kind of will take that torch and carry it forward. And we're here to assist you, support you in any sense.